Wisconsin Broadcasters Association Hall of Famer Bob Berry ruled Milwaukee's airwaves in the 60s and 70s. He spoke with countless musicians and celebrities over the years. Bob collected remarkable recordings of these encounters, which he's now sharing with the public. Here's Bob.
Today we've got a real treat. If you've watched sports on TV at any point in the last few decades, you've probably heard this man's voice. He's called everything: Super Bowls, Final Fours, big-time college football games, and baseball games. He's been courtside, ringside, trackside, you name it. He's the guy who made us all lean in a little closer to the TV with that classic line,
"You are looking live at a sold-out Memorial Stadium in Columbia."
Here's a storyteller, a legend in the booth, and a guy who's been right there for some of the biggest moments in sports. Today, we're hanging with none other than Brent Musburger. And we're talking to Brent Musburger, who is with CBS Sports. Nice to have you on the air. I enjoy your work. I mean that sincerely.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be with you this morning.
Why do you think there's more interest in All-Star baseball rather than the All-Star football game or the All-Star basketball game?
Well, I think that the All-Star baseball game has a great deal of meaning. An All-Star football game at the end of the season is such a letdown. You can't play it in the middle of the year because pro football is so physical, and then by the time the Super Bowl is over, people are more or less drained. And I think football is more of a team game, Bob. In baseball, you can actually round up a group of All-Stars, put them on a field, and you can have a fairly decent contest. I have to disagree about the NBA, if only because of this year's game in Milwaukee, which I thought was a marvelous contest, and that was probably because the ABA players, Julius Erving and those fellas, had come into the NBA for the first time. Now, it's true that generally we don't get that much excitement, but I'll tell you, that fourth quarter of that game in Milwaukee last winter, that was some all-star show.
Do you have any favorite sport, Brent?
No, it really doesn't matter.
That's good.
Whichever one I'm being paid to cover, I suppose,
Okay.
Is my favorite. From a television standpoint, Bob, I think the TV covers football better than any game. I think football was invented for television. The delay between the plays and our ability to get the videotape replays back in the living room. Actually, I think many times, because of weather and other factors, you can see a football game better in the living room. Baseball's a little bit different. Your eye likes to wander, and you like to enjoy the quiet pastime of sitting out in the stadium and drinking a beer. So sometimes we don't do as well, speaking just of covering the sport on television and covering baseball. I think that baseball is a marvelous radio game because it depends upon imagination, and people can go about their housework or work on a car out in the garage and kind of tune back and in on a baseball game on radio. I think it was ideal for that particular media. But each sport has its own appeal and its own group of interesting personalities, and I think that appeals to me probably more than the games, the people involved.
Where are you from, Brent?
I grew up in Montana and then went to school really not too far from Milwaukee, Northwestern and Evanston, and lived for a long time in the Midwest.
Do you have one of those stories covering high school basketball games and things like that to start out with?
I tried to play everything, Bob, and failed at them, one and all. I wanted to be an athlete in the worst way, so I did the next best thing. I hung around and was a writer actually for a time, Bob, and then went into broadcasting.
Okay, you were with the Bulls for a while, weren't you?
I was not their broadcaster, but because I was down in Chicago and worked for WBBM, a television station down there, I was probably more associated with the Bulls at the time than any other NBA team.
I see. That's where I got that. The last couple of years, the trend has been toward using former and active athletes as broadcasters and commentators in sports events. Do you think this will continue?
Oh, I'm sure it will continue, Bob, probably because of the marquee value, if for no other reason. Television depends upon celebrities and stars to try to attract an audience. It's a very unfair system, and I would say that about 9 out of 10 athletes fail, but every now and then one comes along, and he turns out to be tremendous. For CBS, Pat Summerall, who started slowly, I suspect now is one of the most accepted announcers in America. Frank Gifford has worked hard at his craft. I think Don Mara's personality is excellent. He'll be back in the Monday night booth with Howard and Frank this year.
Right.
Alex is going back to acting, apparently. For every one of those guys that makes it, Bob, 8 or 9 others fall by the wayside. It's just too bad because there's a lot of youngsters in broadcasting schools around the country who would love to be involved in covering games on radio and television, and they really are not going to get the opportunity. It's not fair, but, a lot of things aren't fair, and I'm not so sure that any of us can write that.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard Eddie Doucette, our Bucks?
I know Eddie Doucette very well. I think he does a great job for Milwaukee. In Chicago, when I used to drive home and maybe the Bulls were off or the Bucks were out west, I'd tune in and listen to Sky Hook. He gave a lot of terms that I use today in covering pro basketball. He's a fine fellow and a great basketball broadcaster.
Yeah. How about some of the, can I back you in the corner now? How about some of the worst you've ever heard?
Some of the worst I've ever heard?
Yes.
Well, listen, there are times when I've been the worst I've ever heard when I go back and hear the cassettes. I wouldn't tell you even if I had an idea of, I'll tell you somebody that we all love to hate from time to time is Howard Cosell. And,
Right.
He has made a career out of irritating all of us.
How do you permit this to go on? They can't lay a glove on me. That's absurd. All they got to do is roll a tape. Come on, we've got to get out of here. We have animals here. Animals.
And he's made a fortune out of it.
That's right.
He really has based his whole stick around that. And even today, he'll walk around. I happened to see him yesterday over one of the luncheons around the All-Star game, and he was grousing about how dull baseball was and how he hated it and how he wanted to get back to football. And yet he loves every minute of it. He can't wait to get back in the Monday night booth and irritate all of us who are trying to watch and enjoy a baseball game. But Howard is one of those personalities who gets folks to turn on television sets, Bob. I don't think there's any doubt about that. He is a force.
Nowadays, when they're picking sportscasters, do you think, is it important to be handsome? Is that a big thing?
I don't think so. I don't think it's important to be handsome to be in the movies anymore. I think that's where the trend developed away from the pretty boys. I think, we made the jump from Rock Hudson's and suddenly the Dustin Hoffmans and the personality types came along. Of course, those fans out there, Robert Redford would throw his name back in my face, and obviously he's handsome, but he's also extremely talented. I think that's probably one of the last things that someone looks for today. You have to be a bit of a salesman. There's no question about that. We try to keep an audience listening or watching the game as best we can. And I think you have to be informative. And I think you have to do a little work now for the fans. If I'm broadcasting a Milwaukee Buck game out of Madison Square Garden, those people back in Milwaukee know more about that team than I do. And I have to work to try and at least keep up with them. And on a network level, that's where we run into the most trouble. When the Philadelphia-Portland series began, people in Portland were very down on me because I had done so many Philadelphia games, and they felt I was rooting for Julius Erving and Dr. J. And because we're forced to front run at the network level, whoever's winning, we wind up cheering for. That by the time the series was over, they were down on me in Philadelphia, thinking that I had started rooting for Bill Walton and the Trailblazers. It's a problem that all of us face with the network because local broadcasters lean heavily toward local teams.
A lot of preparation involved to get you ready for this All-Star game?
It's going on even now. I've got to go over to the commissioner's luncheon and introduce all the players, and so you run down all the statistics and try to think about anecdotes and things that you might tell the people. And then, of course, tonight, fortunately, I'm blessed with the man that I think is the finest play-by-play baseball broadcaster in the country. That's Vin Scully, and he'll just carry all the action. And what a pleasure it is to sit back and listen to him. The years that he has developed a particular style, and it's so pleasing to the ear, and he knows so much.
From the pleasing to the obnoxious again, let's go to Cosell for just a minute. Is Howard Cosell as obnoxious off the air as he is on?
Yeah, caricature, I guess we could say of himself. He prides himself on it. I must say, I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea because I happen to like Howard, and I think that if you needed a friend and you knew him, that he would be there. But to answer your question, yes, he loves to antagonize. If he sees somebody from NBC, he'll jump all over them for something their network has done. And he likes to get the upper hand on you immediately. And so you have to try to attack him back. And he enjoys that.
Are you censored at all by networks or sponsors and what you have to say?
By sponsors, no. That era really has changed at network television because companies no longer can afford to buy ball games. It's just too expensive. So we don't have like one company bringing you the National Football League or Major League Baseball or the National Basketball Association. I think we're censored to the point that we have to know that we're selling CBS and we work for them. So far, no one from the commissioner's office in any of the leagues has ever told me not to say anything critical about a ball player or not to refer to any controversial incident. I have never faced that at CBS. I think there's some self-imposed censorship. I think we have to be very, very aware that youngsters, in particular, are attracted to professional sports on television and radio. I just think we have to be conscious of that all the time as to who we're talking to, that we're guests in living rooms and people driving home in their automobiles. And so I think that most of the censorship is self-imposed. But there's no set of guidelines that Pete Rozelle says you can't refer to someone with a bloody nose or someone who got out of the penitentiary to come into the National Football League. It has never been that kind of censorship. I think we're long past that day and age in the coverage of sports.
You made me think of Paul Hornung when you said that.
Exactly, and Paul, of course, now is covering professional football for CBS, doing color work. In fact, most of last season he worked alongside Vin Scully in the broadcast booth. Alex Karras, who was also kicked out of the NFL for a year, was allowed to come back. So I think that has really changed, that even though the owners probably would like to use this as a total propaganda vehicle, I think they're aware now that the money we spend, we are allowed some editorial freedom up on the air.
Okay, a little tongue-in-cheek question here. Would you risk your health by saying to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, how's the weather up there? You don't get into that kind of question, huh?
Any of the big guys would I risk it. Remember what I call Bill Walton the mountain man anymore either. He doesn't like it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Did he tell you that personally?
Yes, oh yes, he told me that personally, yes.
Okay, Brent, we're going to let you save your voice for tonight, and we'll be looking forward to hearing you do the color reporting for the All-Star Game. Thanks a lot for talking with us this morning.
Anytime. Have a good day.
Bob Berry. Thank you for listening to Bob Berry's Unearthed Interviews. Be sure to subscribe and rate our podcast wherever you find your podcasts. You can find all our episodes at WisconsinBroadcastersMuseum.org. Check out Bob Berry's book, Rock and Roll Radio Milwaukee. Book sale proceeds support Donate Life Wisconsin. Special thanks to Wisconsin Historical Society and for financial support from WBA Hall of Famer Terry Barr.